Hi, it's Darren, and welcome to New York. I'm in Manhattan this week attending the Raymond James Global Top Advisor Conference. I'm representing Team Canada. There's the 7 top advisors from Canada were invited to attend. The top 50 advisors from the firm globally, which would be advisors from the United Kingdom, Canada, and the United States, are all here together this week where we're going to have talks with management. We have a number of very high-end speakers from the investment community. And as well, my friend Dr. Joe Coughlin from the Age Lab at MIT will be here. So I'm playing tourist today. I came into the conference a bit early so I can walk around with my camera, and I also wanted to see some of the major sites because we haven't really been able to travel for the last 3 years, remember? And so I came down, I'm at the 9/11 Memorial. Little pro tip, don't try and film anything around the New York Stock Exchange. There's a lot of security and they don't like this stuff. Anyway, so I'm at the 9/11 Memorial, which I'm really pleased to visit. I've been able to come here before, and I think for most of us that were around in 9/11 and remember that fateful day, I think it's important that we come and reflect a bit on what happened that day and what was lost. So, but don't want to talk about that today. What I do want to focus on is there's really, in my view, 2 pilgrimages that I think most investors ought to make. The first one is to Wall Street, to New York, and I think that's an obvious one. I was just there, I saw the bull statue and other things, and I'll be having a visit to the stock exchange later this week as part of our conference. But the other one is something that happened about a week and a half ago, which I think is also just as important, if not more so for investors, which is the Berkshire Hathaway annual shareholders meeting, which happened in Omaha, Nebraska. And the 2 styles of investing, what each one represents, could not be more different from each other. Now, I've had the opportunity and the pleasure to go to the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting twice. Both times I got to meet Warren Buffett face to face. Totally random, and those are funny stories for another day because they're both completely strange. But in any event, the 2 styles of investing I don't think could be any different from one another. I think the Wall Street style of investing we think about is very much about capital allocation and trading and action and movement, and it's exciting. Whereas the Omaha style, the Warren Buffett style, the Berkshire Hathaway style is boring. But it's probably easy to argue, and the math would support this, that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger are probably 2 best investors in history. And they didn't do it by trading. Indeed, they advocate strongly against that. And I'm going to put a link in here to Warren Buffett's annual letter to shareholders for 2022. And it's really helpful on their website. They list, or he has a link to every shareholder's letter he's written going all the way back to the 60s. And I would argue that these are effectively a PhD class in investing, better than any MBA, and they're free. You just have to read them. But this one this year I think is particularly important because they discuss how they become so successful. And it's really a couple of key principles that he talks about, his secret sauces, he says. And one of them is, he says, look, I only need to make like 1 decent investment every 5 years because the winners tend to be far better than the losers. And he says, you know, the flowers that bloom are way more important than the weeds. So I think that's good for us to remember. He also talks about the power of dividends as a long-term investor, and he cites 2 key examples. The first one is Coca-Cola and the other is American Express. And he says, look, they've allocated maybe $1 billion of capital to each of those 2 companies over time, but they generate about $300 million each of annual dividends. So the return is unbelievable. Now, he also admits that, you know, a couple of other advantages were to do this early and then live till you're 90. Those are helpful tips to also to keep in mind. But I think the core idea for us as investors that we often forget is investing is not about trading and not about short-term forecasts, which he said they spend absolutely 0 time in. He says, look, we're not stock pickers, we're business pickers. And there is a difference. So I'm going to encourage you to take a few minutes, read the letter that he wrote. As I say, I'll put a link here so it's easy for you to find. And then if you've got some time, and especially if you've got kids, make them read some of the last shareholder letters that he's written. Because as I say, they really are a PhD class in how to invest properly. And it's also true that these are things that are easy to say, but they are hard to do in practice, just like getting healthy, right? Eat less and exercise. Easier said than done, right? So I want you to go back, read the letters if you can, and we're going to try to do the best we can to keep applying those principles to what we do. I said in my last quarterly update that investing is actually easy. It's predicting the future that's really hard. And where the problem comes in is confusing the 2. So when we invest, we want to be buying quality companies. We want to be buying diversified businesses. We want to be diversifying our portfolios. We want investing for income. There's a bunch of things that we want to just try and do and keep going back and doing them. eat less, and exercise. It's the what's going to happen with interest rates, what's going to happen with Ukraine, what's going to happen with the housing market. These are the things, the short-term forecasting that can have us veering all over the place. And it's not that we don't try to make some educated guesses, it's just sometimes we got to remember to stick to the principles and not get too caught up in the day-to-day. So there you go. I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to keep being tourist today. I think it's going to get colder because it is cold today. It's sunny, but it's cold. And I also think it's interesting, like our head office is in Florida. Like this is February. Hello, we could have done it there, but anyway, I'll enjoy Manhattan. Again, haven't been here for a few years, but it's great to be back. I'm going to be tourist for today, and then a little bit later I may be shopper. If it gets too cold, I'll just hit the mall. And I'll enjoy the rest of the week with my colleagues. So with that, thank you very much for watching. Talk to you soon.